Hello guys, now a tutorial from my side. I'm sorry, I'm still quite sick. You can probably hear this with my voice, but nevertheless I will give you a tutorial now. Maybe first off, what we're trying to recreate today is this thing by Kushlet. Oh, you see my screencast download. What can we see here? So it's probably a curve, right? So these things are located on a curve with the direction according to the curve. And then there's this object which is just like there for like, I don't know, 2000 times or something. And yeah, but it's always the same object. And in Blender, we can work with instances. So we have one object which is then loaded as an instance and then used 1,000 times and has very little computational power because, or it needs very little computational power since it's always one object which gets loaded in there and then just replicated a lot of times. But the computer doesn't think of it as 1,000 individual objects. And maybe also here you can see that it also clips through. So yeah, we don't have to be aware too much what happens there. Maybe afterwards we also create this little shader. And I divide this tutorial into two parts. So have a more simple part up front and then have a more advanced thing at the end. Okay, maybe in the end we also use kind of little trick I used here is to simulate like a more fluid optical illusion, right? It's not really a soft body, but it's four-dimensional noise. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we will need is a circle. And maybe we just scale this up a bit, or maybe a little bit more, and put in the Geometry Nodes tab. Oops, Geometry Nodes. Yeah. And like this, okay. In the Geometry Nodes tab, you can either create a geometry node right here, or you just make this and then it also creates this automatically. And then we have this geometry nodes enabled. And the first thing we will do is resample the curve. So what this does is just takes the curve you just currently have and it puts multiple points on this curve. But we want to use the length, so we can change it a little bit easier afterwards. And then we already get to the instance on points node, which creates instances, or let's first say objects on each individual point which you feed into this geometry thing right here. But for this we need an object which we can use as an instance, right? And then wait, it messed something up, but it doesn't matter. We want maybe let this a little bit, this like this, and want to be a little bit longer, and I also want the maybe the X to be a little bit more flat-ish. Maybe also like this. Doesn't matter, actually. Really, it doesn't matter. And then we rename this maybe to instance mockup or something. Forgot an S. And we don't need to see it anymore, and we go back to our original Bezier curve. And we can use this thing right at the right there and plug it in like this, or we can use the object info node like this and then use this instant mockup node this way. And we plug it in here, and now we see, oh my goodness, objects actually quite big. Maybe I have to change something in the object. So, yeah, make sure you do this in the edit tab, because in the normal tab it doesn't affect it. So what you can see now is that the instance is not affected by the rotation of the circle. We want to use these instances, but they should face all a different direction, maybe according to the circle. How do we recreate this? Is we use the curve tangent node, since curves don't have normals but tangents, and use the align Euler to vector node, and then also while we're at it, use the rotate Euler node. Whoop. And plug this rotation right in there, and then we already have something. Yeah, we can change this, and maybe we just use this as it is, and then maybe, I don't know, do it like this. It's a little weird, but this is because of those handles. And we can change the handles. You change the rotation of the handles. Maybe we can make this whole shape a little bit more interesting, and subdivide it. And yeah, make it a little bit more, let's say, intertwined, like the original one. Okay, again, we don't want to see the original mockup. In the Kushlet version, it also had different sizes applied to the instance. You know, we can use this as in a similar way, but we use a noise texture, maybe already put it into 4th dimension, so we can animate it later, and use a very white texture, and yeah, we can already plug it into the scale. But now we see, okay, now it isn't affected too much. Maybe I want to have a little bit more control over it. Yeah, just use the color ramp node and maybe change the minimum value, and maybe already like make it a little bit more extreme, so increase the contrast, let's say. And then we have something like this. Okay, looks a little bit more organic now. I want this main shape to maybe have a little bit more stuff going on, which will then be animated, and therefore we can use the set position node. This set position node should be, we can use this set position node either after we resample the curve or after we instance the objects. And I can just put it in here. It doesn't have an effect now, but I can just replug it and to show you what the differences are. So yeah, again, use a noise texture and plug it into the offset. Okay, total mayhem. Okay, so what do we want? Okay, we want a little way tinier scale. And maybe we also, again, want this fourth dimensional thing to happen. One thing about this is maybe but we want a vector math node. Color is actually a vector, if you believe it or not. It has 3 values, right? And forgot to multiply it again. Yeah, so, but what you can see now is that it always moves in this direction broadly. That's why we want to subtract the noise value from 0.5. So we so the direction of the vectors will not be from 0 to 1, but from minus 0.5 to 0.5. And yeah, just use the vector math node again and put it to subtract. Put this value on the bottom and then 1, 1, 1, 1. And now it should move. Oh wait, sorry, what am I telling you? It should move in the middle, and it does. So maybe pay close attention to what happens to these instances. Since the curves change, also the tangent changes, which means the rotation of the instances changes according to the movement of the base curve. But if we plug the thing right there, then the basic mesh stays like this, and the rotation of these instances stays the same all along. Still it is offset, but it stays the same. Okay, quick comparison again. Bam. Okay, right, you can see it. Maybe look at this spot right there. Okay, so what I showed you earlier with this, we can also apply it to this, and we use again this node right here, so this noise texture, and just put it like this, and we use the offset. We put it into the offset. And now what we can see is nothing. right? We want a larger value and maybe just have it affect the things a little bit, maybe like this, but nothing changes to the geometry of these objects unless we realize those instances. And now, beware, so it changes, or maybe increase the scale. It changes these objects very much, but now all those instances in itself are gone. So this increases the computational power again by a lot. So I just mute it for now. Okay, so maybe go back to the original instance and just make a quick modeling. So we use this, and in Kushlet's version we can see, okay, it has this curve, and it goes up, has a hole, and then it has a spike. And in this hole it has this other spike. So first off we make this hole. Here we have both those instances. Make bridge edge loop. Wait, bridge edge loops. Okay, like this. Extrude this. Have this little spike going on. Have this other spike going on. Maybe have this little coil thing right there. And then, I don't know. I don't know. Like this, and maybe we can also, let's say, decrease this size, decrease this size. Change the overall curvature of it. And we want this object to sit along here. Right, and then we put a good old subdivision modifier on it. The object now is not shaded smooth, but we can just shade it smooth right here. Now all the instances are replaced by this object again. Okay, now I'm in the shaders tab, but the light is obviously fucked and everything looks ugly, even with the non-material there, and maybe we can already make like a nice camera angle. I don't know, maybe this will do right now. And we wait, sorry, shader, wait, I can't see. Okay, I wanted to do it like this, and we want to affect the world view obviously, and put in an environment texture. Right, and light path node. We want to use the light path node and mix RGB node, and we want to use the isCamera value right for this, and we can make it black right here, or we can make it filmic and then transparent, and then there's no background. But if we want to have a background, but not the background of this HDRI, we can do it like this, and maybe we want it like this or whatever. This is not affected by the lighting or anything. Right? Okay. Maybe also we change the light itself to sun, and obviously decrease the strength and have it hit maybe from behind. Haha. Okay, so we have this instance, and normally we would think, okay, now put a new texture in here, rename it to, I don't know, Kushlet material, and for example change the base color. We are in the shading tab right now. Object. Okay, first off we maybe use a more metallic approach, which is in this soft bluish tint, and then metallic, decrease the roughness, I don't know, like this. And maybe we can also use a little bit of bump. And that's not the proper way to do it, but it still works. Use a normal map for this color. Wait, use a normal map for this color, put it in the normal, and it has this weird thing. Maybe increase this and decrease the strength by a lot. And now you have this a little bit interesting look to it. And here it fucks up, but yeah, it's just like a quick get through, right? And now we want to use this subsurface scattering as well. Therefore we use mix shaders. Maybe so we have a look at this, and we increase the subsurface scattering mode. Now I have to change into cycles, and my computer's already breathing. And we decrease this a little bit, going into this yellowish tint, but having a way softer subsurface color, and maybe maybe we put it like this. So the subsurface radius is how the light rays are affected by the volume. I don't want this. I want this to be like very rough. I can't really see the subsurface scattering at the very moment, which I find quite sad. Here it is. I think the lighting is still quite shit. Yeah, this doesn't get affected. Okay, so what we do now is use the layer weight node and use this, plug it in here, and now everything which faces to us is gets this shader, and everything which is not really facing us gets the other shader, and it creates this little bit weird effect. Right. Okay. That's it. So now we can still have a look at it again, maybe already in this, and play around with it. We have this option. Maybe put it back into Eevee. So we have this. But we also have maybe increase things. We have this option, right? But we also have this option, which we can now realize. And now we have this. Okay, the strength is way too big. Maybe put it to 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And we now have this a little bit more subtle wave. And yeah, okay. As I said, it's the computation power of it is very high. So maybe put it like this so we have way less objects. And yeah, okay, it's quite laggy. But you get the gist of it. We have this structure, but I want to show you something else as well. So, okay, go back, and I'm now in this object, and edit mode, delete all the vertices, and I have, let's say, this now. Okay, this looks quite nice, but I want it a little bit different. Okay, first off, maybe, yeah, okay, we just try to do it with this, with these things, right? With these instances we have there at the very moment, but we might have to change it later, or I have to change it later to show you something. But now I don't want the noise texture to affect the scale. I want to show you something else. I want these instances scaled by the length of the curve. Up there I want it to be really big, and down there I want it to be very small. And then I can use the spline parameter, and the spline parameter should affect the scale. The spline parameter the factor tells me this is 1 and this is 0. Or no, this is 0, this is 1. You can see it like this, right? This is 0, this is 1. So scale 0, obviously nothing. Scale 1, full size. But this is not how we want it. Obviously we could change the rotation of this curve, but that's not the real approach. Map range. So from 0 to 1, but now we want it from 1 to 0, or 0.1 if you want this to be the max size. The reason I didn't show you this is because now we can use the trim curve. And the trim curve changes the endpoint of the curve. By this also affects the 1 and 0 values, which then is also applied to these instances. I mute this again because I don't need this right now. I also put it right there. Maybe, yeah, I just put this there. Maybe we can use it later or something. Yeah, now we need, I want this tentacle to have curves coming out of it. So tentacles of the same thing coming out of it. A little bit like maybe some roots or a lightning or something. So very organic thing. Maybe it's not like a spine or something, because obviously it doesn't have something else coming out of it, but still that's what I have in my mind. So what we need now is to instance those tentacles onto this shape. How do we do this? Wait, first of all, we join the geometry and put this in there, and we need this trimmed curve right there, and then we need another instance. But for this, I want to use a curve line. Will be like this, and now it sticks out at every point. We can change this with the selection, but not now. Again, we can change the rotation of this the same way we did it with the other stuff. Now it looks like this. I don't know if we want it to look like this. Maybe we want it to, yeah, go down, but not fully. I don't know how we want it. Okay, looks good, nice. But obviously those lines are ugly and they don't look very organic. So I want to again set position and offset those curves. Again with a noise texture. And again with the whole divided by stuff. So vector math this, and we also probably want to multiply it afterwards. So this is the strength, and this is the subtract by 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5, and yeah, if we change these values, nothing really happens. That's the reason why, or the reason is that the curve lines don't have many points, namely 2. So we can just resample this curve and have this. And this looks nice, but everything looks the same. So we have to realize those instances, right? No, sorry. We have to make all this after we instance those points. Sorry, my bad. So we instance, wait, like this. Yeah. Yeah, and now we have to realize those instances. Still maybe put a smaller scale / larger scale onto it, and we can increase the count maybe to like this and increase the length. But what you can see now is that those curves also change their starting point. So I want this, but what you can see here is I want this curve to be stable, right? Or at least the starting point. And what I do now is I again use the spline parameter and multiply it with this. And now the starting point is unchanged, but what we can see is that it has a weird fall off, so nothing really happens in the first, let's say 50%. Not really, something's happening there. But we can change this by using either like the color ramp we could use, but we could also use the float curve. And make it like this, so the fall off is way quicker. Right? Okay, nice. Okay, so I also want to trim those curves, right? I want these to be trimmed, but I don't want them to trim all at the same time, but I want those lines be trimmed according to this length, right? So up here I want them to be long, and down there I want them to be very tiny. And what we can do now is use this length and plug it in here. But this is a little bit tricky, since, as you can see, we always use this parameter, but this parameter is always used in the closest, for the closest geometry which we use. But we want this geometry information to be plugged into this information, even though we already have something like here. And so we need to capture these attributes and use a capture attribute node and the spline parameter node, and use this factor, put it into the value. Yeah, so we use this capture attribute node right after we trim the curve. But we have some stuff right going on there, so we need just put a reroute right there, and I want this to exactly stay there. So geometry into this, geometry into this. Okay, now this trimmed curve value of the factor is put into this trim curve right there. But again, it's reversed. So first off, reverse it. We can use the map node. We can use a map node. I just use a map node right here, maybe for further change, because maybe I want the bottom ones not to be 0, but like this. And yeah, looks fine. But what happens if I trim this curve? Yeah, it changes. Nice. But the growth goes really fast, and then it falls off very slowly. And I want this growth to be a little bit more linear, let's say. And therefore we have to capture more attributes. This is a completely optional step. You don't have to take this, but we take another capture attribute node, also there, and now we use the capture, the spline length node. Not this length, this is something else, but we use those both lengths right there, plug them in, and it's already really messy. We use the ratio of the trimmed status, so the trimmed length divided by the whole length. So the trimmed length divided by the whole length. This ratio we need, and therefore we take a math node, maybe, so use the divide. So what did I say? The trimmed thing divided by the complete thing. And then we just again use the math node and multiply it, use this result with this result, and put this value in the end. So what's happening now? Yeah, it has a more linear growth. Okay, nice. Now I want the instances also on these little curves. Now again, we have these curves, right? We take the instances on points node and plug in the object node we already had. Tick and tick. Okay, really many objects. Maybe we can use the rotation again. So the rotation according to, wait, how did this get unplugged? I'm sorry. We use this curve tangent node. Maybe I just put this down there, right? So, okay, those instances are down there. And we take this and plug it into the rotation again. Oh my goodness, it looks so messy. Wait, I increased the length of those. The curves are weird when I change the way they behave. Maybe. It looks a little bit more approachable. Okay, I just work with this right now. Again, we use this curved, this spline parameter and map range node for these instances. And plug it into the scale. Whoop. And now, as you can see, they get smaller, way smaller. But as you can see, they always start at 1 and get to 0. But I want those to start big here, and I want those to start at a smaller scale. So I want the scale of this original curve be affecting those other curves. This was very bad English. So how do we do this? This is also a little bit harder. we need the transfer attribute. And we use this geometry up there and use the spline parameter thing like this and use the index. We will need a math node to eyeball it later on, so I already put this here, but you don't know now why we will need this. So we use this transfer attribute node to affect the minimum scale, which is the large scale actually, but here it is this minimum value, right? And so this transfer attribute is put into this minimum value, and as you can see, up here it is really big, and here it's smaller, but we can't see too much. So I want to put it like this, and maybe I want this to really be at 0. Okay, so we have these things. Looks quite nice. So maybe we can, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Maybe we can increase the length again of those lines, or increase the count. And now we have this very, very weird object. In my test it looked way nicer. I'm sorry. Maybe we can have a little thing like here. Scale it. Yeah, okay. This looks quite interesting. And this is also affected by the trim curve. I don't know why this happens. I didn't find a real good solution for this. But this is quite nice. Yeah. That's it. Maybe have a look at it in the shaded view. I'm still in Eevee. And maybe also just again trim those curves. Yeah, looks quite interesting. You can obviously change the rotation of those things again with a noise texture or something, but this looks quite interesting. I forgot to show you something. I'm here in another file, but this is like the same thing I showed you, but with these little things right there. Just so you can put something else there, but it's just like this mock-up thing. But the overall shape looks way more interesting. I don't know. Wait, I can show you again what the differences are. It's in the end, it's just like the same stuff, but different values here and there. Yeah, but what I wanted to show you is that obviously we can change this value right here, and everything changes and everything moves perfectly, but as you can see here, these are just multiple curves. So the nice thing about this is we can just go into edit mode. We can just go into edit mode and then, okay, I want something here, or I want a tiny thing here, or I want to delete everything and start new and have this weird thing, or maybe like this. And so you can have very different shapes, different looks, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.